With the introduction of Rank 8 aircraft, the grind for RP and Silver Lions on both vehicles and modifications is going to be harder than ever, so save yourself some time by using the free GE for War Thunder app. Even just a couple hundred Golden Eagles obtained through the app for free can get you premium time for a day of grinding the new jets, which is pretty big considering how expensive they are. Use my code on screen for 10 extra GE, the links will be in the description down below. The F-16A Block 20 was added to the Chinese tech tree just on the second dev server, and it has AIM-7F Sparrows. This is a rather interesting development for quite a few reasons. We're going to go over pretty much all of those in this video. The first one being is there's a lot of US mains out there pretty upset that once again other countries are getting better variations of their own aircraft before they do, which I can kind of sympathize with that argument, but that is in no way what I'm making this video about. I do think it would make a whole hell of a lot more sense for Gaijin to just add the F-16's pretty much equal capability. For example, the Israeli and the American F-16s could be Block 15 ADFs or whatever the heck it is, the first one that carries Sparrows, so that way all of them can carry Sparrows together and they're all relatively, well, equally effective to each other. Even still, that's not quite so much the problem, but it does all kind of wrap itself together in the end. And what we're going to talk about now is who has the F-16 Block 20 with the Sparrows, and it is China. Why is this a big deal? Well, because it's not American. Yeah, we've already covered that. That's not why. Because Chinese, like 80% of the time in the current matchmaker, gets paired with the USSR. And there are a lot of different presets to the matchmaker, so not every single time is China going to be teamed up with the USSR. They will be facing each other sometimes. There's all kinds of different presets per map that you'll see at top tier, but the most frequent one is definitely going to be China and USSR on the same team, and more often than not, that kind of matchup isn't going to be mirrored. Maybe once the update initially comes out, we're going to see a big spam of MiG-29s, and you're going to see MiG-29s on both sides. That is fair, but I think later on, once it starts becoming standard US on both teams and then Russia and China together, we're going to be seeing a very interesting matchup. Because when you break it down, you have the MiG-29A, which is undoubtedly, even with the R-73s taken away, it is the favorite of this patch. The two R-27Ts are just griefing people's games. It is literally 2 free kills. If you're not getting 2 free kills with those things, I have nothing else to say to you other than chronic skill issue. The flight model is unfinished, so we're not sure how exactly it's going to enter the live game. I assume it's going to be a good bit better than it is right now, but let's just say, even if it does come to the server or to the live server as it is right now on the dev server, it's still a pretty formidable top tier aircraft and definitely better than pretty much everything else at current 11.3. Additionally, you get the helmet mounted display or the device sight, whatever, I don't care, the HMD, which allows you to point and click your R27Ts and R60Ms, quite literally for that matter. Point and click. You don't have to point your nose at the enemy plane whatsoever, which is pretty silly. So all in all, the MiG-29A is just shaping up to be undoubtedly the strongest competitor of this patch, especially compared to things like the F-16A carrying 69Ls, which may or may not be nerfed in flare resistance by the time they make it to the live server. But now we finally have an F-16 with 2 7Fs, which is not nearly going to be as strong as 2 27Ts, but it is something at least that adds some variation and some options for the F-16. Lo and behold, it's going on the wrong side. This thing is not supposed to be pairing up with the MiG-29 more frequently than it is facing it. We now have the 2 strongest planes of the patch, the MiG-29 and the strongest variation of F-16, that are going to be on the same team more than they are facing each other, is basically the entire point of what I'm trying to say here. And yes, this is a rant video. If it were up to me, ideally the Taiwan tech tree in the Chinese tree would probably be a sub-tree of the US, similar to what you see Finland in the Swedish tree, or if not, just make it its own goddamn tree, like Israel. The big reason for this, for me personally, is I really would like to see some kind of semi-historical matchmaking once again, you know, kind of NATO versus Warsaw games, and that's literally just going to be impossible with Chinese and Taiwan being in the exact same tech tree. You have Western planes and Eastern planes playing for the same side when they really shouldn't be. But let's get real for a minute, that's never going to happen. The whole semi-historical matchmaking, Allied versus Axis, or whichever side of the scale you fall on, is never going to happen ever again, and we're going to be getting mixed every single update for the foreseeable future. So accepting that reality, it still just doesn't add up, because once again, why are you balancing it this way by giving the strongest F-16 to the already strongest side? It just doesn't make sense, man. Like I said, I would be a lot happier, at least in this situation, for them to simply give all of the F-16s Sparrow capability, and if that means making them different F-16s, then so be it, that's what you gotta do. Quick rundown of the F-16, at least the Taiwanese Block 20 model, they are all the same in flight performance. However, the only difference is that the Block 20 has a Sparrow. So how does it feel on the F-16? Well, it is quite literally, as of this dev server, exactly the same as the EJ Kai radar. So if you guys have played the F4 EJ Kai in the Japanese tech tree, you're basically getting the same kind of gameplay when it comes to radar and Sparrows. I will say, right now on the dev server, the Sparrows are just really bugged. You've probably seen them in this clip, they just don't track anything, they do their own thing. It is very wonky, but that's not at all how Sparrows act in the live server, so I'm not really worried about it. From my personal experience, the EJ Kai radar slash F-16 radar is the best in the game when it comes to actually tracking a target and guiding a missile in. It's not necessarily the strongest or the most powerful. I would give that to the F-14 in terms of just being able to find raw targets to actually lock onto, but let's just say once you have something locked up, it is probably the most difficult one to notch and break the lock of. Again, that's just my experience. You might have a different experience. Let me know down in the comments below. But 2 Sparrows, 4 9Ls, really good kit. That's probably what I would prefer to have my F-16 if the 9L is nerfed, especially on the live server. Right now on the dev server, as I said, they are quite a bit less flare resistant. You can reliably flare these things on the dev server, which is a real shame because they were pretty funny to use when they were immune to flares. I say immune to flares, but you could still flare them in literally every jet as long as you drop to 0% throttle. Not like the R27T right now. It doesn't matter if you drop to 0% throttle, you are still going to die 9 out of 10 times. The Sparrows do offer some options and actually, believe it or not, a little bit of counterplay to the MiG-29, but it is very niche and kind of coping counterplay. And what I mean by that is, since you have 7Fs, you could just fly in the clouds and lock targets and shoot from the clouds without getting R27T'd from 15 kilometers away and not be able to flare it even if you try. And yes, that's extreme copium because the odds of you finding clouds big enough to just fly through the entire time and using your radar missiles is pretty much 0. But again, there are options at least when you have multiple missiles in your loadout. I am really excited for the F-16 despite how messy this patch is looking right now. I quite enjoy playing it. The flight model feels pretty nice. I bet it's going to come to the game in this state, which would be huge because it just slams everything in a dogfight, which I'm perfectly okay with considering it's not going to matter anyways once I get donked by 2 27Ts, and I will also be enjoying doing that. Not so much having it happen, but I will enjoy doing it. Anyways, yeah, favorite F-16 of the patch. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you very soon.